I thought of other stuff, and then I thought I don't need this yet.
Yeah. I just bail on it at that point.
I'm still gonna keep it to what will. I'll still keep it to what will keep me out of prison.
I think that's wise. Okay. And we'll come up a little bit early. The chat room will start to gather and give it like 2 minutes, and then I'll bring us both in.
Or
Yeah. Okay.
thank you. I love things like that. Hello.
Hello? Awesome. Outstanding.
Cliff Schechter will be our guest in hour 1, and Tara Dublin will be our guest in hour 2. Hit that like, everybody. We're about to get started in just a minute. Cliff, you all good? Can you hear me all right?
I can. And how's my mic sounding to you? Because I forgot to put on my professional mic, because that's how dumb I am.
Spectacular. It's so much more professional sounding, I think. That's just me, though.
I think I always sound super professional, so it's hard for me to tell the difference.
Yeah, it's weird. I can't. Yeah, it's like professional plus a mild echo. Okay, Here we go. This is we're gonna go to 3, 2, 1. We'll just jump right in. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Al Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide. It's Al Sparks Mondays Mega Worldwide, whatever you want to call it. And Cliff Schechter is here to join me in dissecting what is effectively breaking news, or broken news, or the news as it breaks, the cracks in the news, crack news, your crack news team, about the ruling that just came down from the SCOTUS that gives Donald Trump limited immunity around official acts and limits some of the argument about looking into the motivation that he might have around certain official acts, which is what opens the door to the panic attack that everybody's having about where this is going to go. It was bunted back down to Judge Chutkan, or as I like to call her, Chutkan. Let me rock you, Chutkan.
Chutkan. Yeah.
Yeah, let me rock you, Chutkan. I feel for you. So the yeah. This is the immediate rending of garments that I saw was our democracy has been murdered. Now, I gotta say, Cliff, I am mildly blind right now because I woke up and was reading not only the kind of lead up stories and the expectation stuff, but the actual document as it came out and chunks of the ruling that were being released before I could get my hands.
Weed gummies will help that glaucoma if you've got that issue. So
I don't have glaucoma. I have exhaustion from reading bullshit, and no amount of weed gummies.
Okay. Just making sure, of course.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm like Ronnie Johnson or Jackson or whatever. I try to just prescribe
Johnson's
whatever the fuck I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I just prescribe stuff to anybody. Do you want some Ambien too? Maybe some booze? Some bourbon and Ambien.
I hear it helps with reading.
Perfect.
That's right.
It will make you read like you've never read before.
Oh my God, you understand things in a way that just only a few.
And then when Ronnie gets you the blue crystal meth, oh my God, that is the best shit out there.
It's true. Yeah. There should be a say my name meme with Ronnie Jackson with Trump saying Ronnie Johnson.
That's right.
I'm gonna.
Oh, that's
all right,
so
note
perfect
to self.
that we may have to create that.
Yeah, note to self. Cut that together. All right, I'll add that to the notes. Everybody in the chat room, remind me for a Breaking Bad say my name meme for Ronnie Johnson with the Trump clip. Now.
And let Hal know, because I'll give Hal 24 hours, and if he doesn't frickin' do it, then I'm going to do it. It's his show. He gets first crack at it. No pun intended. But then if he abrogates his duty to bring up the profusive drug intake of Ronnie Johnson, I believe his name is, and Donald Trump and everybody else in there, then I believe it's up to me to do it. Yeah.
So I appreciate you picking that you got my back.
Dude, I'm like your understudy when it comes to this shit.
That's right. And we need one. All right. So I think there are two responses that I've seen the most, and I want your thoughts on both of them. The first being, this is the end of our democracy. We now have a monarch, and no one can do anything about it. And the other one is, I guess Joe Biden is the most powerful president in history, and if I was Donald Trump, I would shit the bed tonight.
Right. I mean, look, I'm not saying I would do this, but let's just say something should befall Donald Trump and Biden, and they wanted to look into Joe Biden's motivations. I guess they can't do that. Look, I'm not being serious. Here's my serious take.
We can say this because we don't actually expect it. If we were talking about Trump in this position, if this ruling had come down while he was president,
I'm not sure
we'd all be freaking the fuck out specifically because he would. There's no way he would leave office.
Right. Well, so again, official acts. Again, that's going to be the $2 million words. In other words, more money than Trump currently has, unless he raises it and then pays off his porn star payment or whatever he owes lawyers money for. But
right.
The real question here is what the determination of what that means. And so I think very clearly, paying off a porn star is outside of your official duties as president of the United States. I think in other words, it hasn't made it so that a president can do anything, anytime, anyhow, and that is not worth freaking out about. Okay, but I will say, and again, not a lawyer, and I thank God most days for that. But what it will do is, I do think it will make it tougher to prosecute a president who has very bad intentions, because obviously if you can't look at what their intentions were when they committed said act, that makes a case against them for stuff I would assume that would have made a case against Richard Nixon more difficult, right? So I'm not saying this is a good ruling.
Right. So this is their backdoor way, I believe, of getting to that. Unless they're impeached first, you can't convict them. That's because what an impeachment would be, nothing stops in the equal branch of government zone of things, nothing stops the Congress and the Senate, I think, technically, from looking into the motivations of the president and questioning his official acts, because that is within their oversight capabilities. And then they can make a referral based on their opinion of it, because they've already asked the question. They already looked into it. The problem obviously is that if the president packs the place with loyalists, it's almost impossible to do. And I'm sure the court was, very aware of this. But this is their backdoor way of ascribing the insistence that you must impeach someone before they are convicted of these acts. That's what it seems like to me.
And what this is again, like, this should remind everybody, like, it was a reason that they were taking so long with this, where most people were like, what? And it's the same thing as what happened with the Dobbs case. Yeah. And I mean, I could name 6 others, from the Shelby case to, oh God, the name's not coming to me right now, but their bullshit gun case, giving an individual right that never existed, to their bullshit sort of Citizens United case and all the rest. Right. What they're doing is they're sitting there and they're saying, how can we not fully overthrow democracy, but also help our guys? What can we do? Because really, we're the 6 of us. I mean, Roberts, what's her face? I can't even think of her name. Good, from Indiana. All these folks, a bunch of these guys, right? Yeah. Senator Blackout Drunk, or not Senator. I mean, Supreme Court Justice Blackout Drunk. They all worked for Donald Trump for George W. Bush as lawyers during the 2000 recount and all that sort of stuff. These are Republicans in robes. Gorsuch's mom was a Reagan political appointee. Like, anybody who's fallen for their actually being judges, I got news for you. So what they were doing is, as Republican partisans, which is what the 6 of them are, they're thinking to themselves, what can we do? Because we can't give a president full immunity. Obviously, then that does fully overthrow democracy. And believe it or not, as fascist as they are, they don't want to 100% overthrow it, because they don't want to endanger themselves and certain other stuff.
It would take away their power as well. Right.
They don't want to do that. They're like, how can we find a way to help Donald Trump, to help right-wing lunatics like us, while still sort of, preserving the fact that a president can be held accountable in some places. And I think this is where they came up with the best way in their minds to help their people, while not completely coming up with something that would fully overturn democracy. So, I mean, to sum it up and be very clear, does this give a president full immunity? Absolutely, it does not. And illegal acts, while committed, while certainly outside of office, are illegal acts. I hate to tell you, but most of the illegal acts have been committed by folks in office. We've never really gone after anyhow. Right. The right wing has. They went after Bill Clinton for a blowjob, basically, and tried to expand that into kicking him out of office. But we've never really done that. We've stuck to we tend to stick to the things that are actual crimes, whether you're in or out of office. So I don't think, in a way, I don't really think that this is going to change that much. When it comes to that,
especially for Democrats, the interesting thing is Democrats, all Menendez types aside, but Democratic presidents have, I think, much to the chagrin of Democratic voters, sometimes painted well within the lines of their legal ability.
Not even close to the lines. To the chagrin of, let's say, some of us who've worked on numerous campaigns before had ideas that we knew could blow away the opposition, just to sit on a phone call with a bunch of DNC lawyers or whoever. I'm not sure that is completely appropriate if you were to do it that way. They almost should have just been wearing like gray wigs and shit and sitting there out of some, in any case. Yeah. And so I don't think it does. We have gone after Donald Trump for the things he's done that are clearly illegal, stealing, documents outside of the scope of your office, trying to overthrow the government outside of the scope of your office. Now, maybe he could find a way to get some of that case to say, well, I was just doing things as president. So maybe some of that case isn't as strong. Like certain things he looked into that he probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But again, on most of this stuff, he is still just as accountable as he otherwise would be.
Agreed.
This is more about the imperial presidency, and ironically, It's more of the kind of thing that Dick Cheney wanted, whose daughter is now on our side because his world is fucking nuts. And, which was to have an imperial presidency where a president, for what they did while they're in office, were rarely questioned. It is going to make it harder to question a president's official acts, and it should motivate that many more of you to give money to not just to the president, to members of Congress and others who are Democrats, to go out to knock on doors, to make phone calls, to share memes, to do everything you possibly can to make sure Donald Trump is never sitting there in the Oval Office.
Exactly. And so I would say arguably that I'm less scared about, a potential Trump having control of this situation, because they've always been leading up to this. So Bill Barr, famously, and I've mentioned this before, but Bill Barr, the reason Trump was talked into bringing in Bill Barr as his replacement for Jeff Sessions was because Bill Barr believes in the supreme executive power of the presidency. He believes that as the one national office voted on by everybody, this person has the mandate of the masses to do whatever the rat fuck he wants while he's there.
Even when he loses by 7 million votes. It's a great fucking system.
Yeah, and that's, again, Bill Barr used that kind of logic and legal reasoning to help get, George H.W. Bush's journals punted as private documents, which they were not, by the way. They were his notes about official proceedings, which are very different from, say, Bill Clinton's recordings of his biography that he was doing. This was not about the this is not his conversations between people, but ultimately a reflection on the shit that he did while he was in office. That's what the Sox case was about. But
I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead. Al. Sorry.
No, that's okay. The official notes, instead of being on the briefing papers, George H.W. Bush kept them in his own personal journal. Along with, by the way, contact information for all the fuckers that were involved in Iran-Contra. And so by getting
a lot of good phone numbers in Saudi Arabia and Israel and a whole bunch of other places.
And so he got that whole document.
All this stuff is new.
Tossed. Right. It's not. It's part of a long-term strategy.
Yes. Look, what this comes down to is, in the end, guys, you saw the way Donald Trump behaved when he was president last time, right? Yeah. If I remember, he used in a ridiculous case his emergency powers to pass tariffs and go around Congress. Well, did we do anything to him about it? No. There are a million other things that were more important, but I'm just saying, did he do it? That's one that comes to mind. Did he do a number of questionable things where you would say, I think president needs Congress for that? Yeah. And if he comes in and he has fewer of, the Mattises, and however much you like them or dislike them, it doesn't matter. People that were Republicans but were independent, McMasters, Kelly, people like that who actually have at least, even if you disagree with them politically, some form of respect for American institutions and the rest. Fewer of those people will be there this time. So what I'm telling you is this doesn't change anything because for the most part, because already you know that if Donald Trump is elected to office, he will commit crimes. He does commit crimes. Right. He commits crimes like you breathe every day. He's a walking fucking crime spree is what he is. He doesn't know how to behave within the law. He has no clue. He's never had any idea.
Which is why he's the perfect Republican for them.
Right. So, and it's also why this shouldn't scare you anymore, because you should be the same level of scared you were before, that if Donald Trump becomes president, whatever the fuck the Supreme Court says, he's going to do a whole bunch of things that are illegal, because again, this is what he does. So the solution to all of this is to not let him become president, to kick his ass in the election. And the only other thing I would say is, and again, I'm just coming out and saying this, the Supreme Court just made this decision. I honestly hope Biden people skeet a little closer to the lines. No, don't do anything. We're not them. Don't do anything authoritarian. Don't do anything. But the truth is, they just gave you more leeway to do some things. Do them. Make sure that whatever it takes, that our Justice Department and other folks are monitoring every single polling place in the country. I don't care. Maybe some states will say it's up to us. Fuck them. If it's certain states you don't trust,
Well,
send in the feds and make sure the
here's where this
polling
would
places
go.
are being monitored and people are able to vote.
Right. Let's go with the premise of Donald Trump's, like one of his biggest recurring lies. They spied on my campaign. Remember that bullshit? Okay, so that was from a vendor who was selling their wares to the DOD or Homeland Security or somebody. They were trying to give an example of how well their cell phone aggregate scanning thing worked. And they turned it on in D.C., I went, look at this. We can tell the country of origin of all these phones without violating the privacy directly of the people involved. But we can tell,
Right.
the nature of the physical device, where it's from, whether they're Chinese phones or whatever. And wouldn't you know it, a bunch of Russian phones are all over the White House during the transition in 2016, 27.
Yeah.
Magically, like never fucking before. Just
Like those two airplanes parked next to each other the other day. It's just
Right, well,
magic. It just happens by accident.
That's what I'm getting to. So there's like a line of fucking ants, Russian phones going in and out of the White House during the transfer. What was the scattered transfer of power, from Obama into Trump? So I got to say, I have no doubt if we saw pictures of the Trump plane parked next to the Russian plane, that the CIA perhaps or the FBI were scanning the living fuck out of that entire thing. Now, what Donald Trump will say is they spied on my campaign. Well, sorry, we were spying on the Russian plane.
If you're a foreign asset, that's the kind of thing they do.
Sorry, that's right. That's exactly it. If the president, you can't even ask, according to the Supreme Court right now, you can't even ask Biden whether it was him trying to get at his opponent or if he genuinely believed that Donald Trump was a Russian asset. According to the conservative court, you can't even ask that fucking question. And so now at this point, get ready for the one thing they can do in line with what you were saying is they could spy on Trump's campaign like never before.
And
with
you know what?
Absolute immunity.
I get to a point where the ends justify the means of protecting democracy. Do it. I will leave it up to them. But as far as I'm concerned, what the leeway the stupid right gave you, and again, I do think because there are questions when it comes to elections, there are arguments, questions back and forth. I'm not an expert, but on how much you have to defer to the states. Well, what I'm saying is, now, as an official act of the presidency, you're making sure that, as our Constitution says, registered voters have the right to vote. So here's what you need to do. Every single place, send in the damn DOJ and make sure polling places are protected so no Proud Boy militias or other bullshit shows up to try to stop people from casting their ballot. And guess what? They can't question you about it.
Nope.
Use it to, in other words, use the power they've given you to stop Trump from committing treason and crimes and to make sure that Americans have the right to elect the president that they wish to elect. And then you are doing whatever you want to consider it, folks. God's work, Allah's work, Buddha's work. I don't remember the dude in Scientology, but that guy too.
But I don't technically think he's the God, though. I think L. Ron Hubbard, I think he was just kind of the Muhammad of it, I suppose. He's the prophet.
So he was so L. Ron Hubbard, because he wrote some great sci-fi books. Okay, I'm not going to go into all this. Look, the thing is that now I'm going to get so many messages. It's going to be fun.
They were terrible.
But the thing is that I know I never do otherwise. The thing is that again, don't do the kinds of things authoritarian right-wing lunatics would do. Do the kinds of things Democrats would do with this power to protect the integrity of our election, to ensure that Donald Trump is not indeed working directly for Vladimir Putin, which if he's not, it's not far off from that, I would hazard a guess, allegedly. Same with members of Congress. I never heard what happened when Scott Perry's phone got confiscated. What did we find there? Mark Meadows' phone. Well, why don't we look into these things and see how much contact there was with the Russians, with the Chinese, with maybe Iranians, with Saudis, with whoever.
With Turkey as a conduit to Iran. Yeah.
Correct. Use your powers for good that they've given you to make sure that America is solidified as a democracy that chooses the person we wish to choose. And we already know, I would be willing to bet you under almost any circumstances, It went from 2.5 million, I think, for Hillary. She won more votes than Trump, to 7 million more for Biden. It's going to be over 10 million more this time, maybe more than that. And so it could be up to 15, I honestly think. So you know what? Let's make sure that the people who our people want to serve are elected to office. And I would say that down on every single level, because the gerrymandering, what has part of what's led the state I'm sitting in to go from being a +2 or 3 Republican state, which is normally what happens when you have congressional races, Senate races, that kind of thing, to a +7 or so Republican state, has been their extreme gerrymandering, their extreme stopping voters from getting to the polls and all of that. Why don't we fix that? We got Sherrod Brown on the ballot, and Joe Biden actually could win here if everybody who showed up and meant to vote got their vote counted. So why don't we use this power to make sure that happens? Oh, and how about North Carolina, where we lost by 1 point? And how about Georgia and Arizona, and Nevada, which we barely won? Whatever. Put your powers to good.
Yep.
That's what
Agreed.
I'm saying.
I think there's been a hesitance because of the belief system that right-wingers, first of all, they're going to do it anyways. They're going to paint you with, saying you're, stealing people's rights, or you're spying on Americans, or all that kind of stuff. They're going to say it anyways. And
of course,
you're not spying on Americans when you're doing a sweep of communications during the attack on the Capitol, right? That's not the same thing.
Right.
That is not you
No,
tracking.
my rule when it comes to messages is always two things. Don't purposely give them a soundbite or something to use against you. So no, don't go out of your way to say something stupid. But at the same time, accept the fact, as they've already even delved into deep fakes and AI, understand that they are going to lie, cheat, and steal in every way humanly possible. Again, that has been the culture of the Republican Party, starting with Nixon, and it started as a smaller group of people, and there still were a lot of people, Republicans. If folks get upset with me, go ahead. But there were Republicans, Bob Michael, the former minority leader of the House before Newt Gingrich took over, people like that were moderate and behaved with integrity. The problem is the group of lunatics expanded to where now it's like the entire Senate, but maybe Lisa Murkowski. It's now it is a controlling vehicle in their party. So if you know this, you should know that they're going to say anything, do anything, cheat in any way possible, lie in any way possible. Power is the goal. None of the rest of it means anything to them how they get it. And we have been too flat-footed. We were in 2016. We were, there are other times we were too flat-footed and we still ended up winning. But we were too flat-footed, to be honest with you, back in '92 with the dirty tricks they're playing against Bill Clinton. He just happened to be a charismatic candidate who won. We have to be ready and stop this niceness and stop this bullshit. And the only thing I'm going to say off of the debate the other night, because I'm sure you've talked about it, and I don't need to get into the whole conversation. It didn't end up being nearly as damaging as many of us thought it would be. Right. But the only thing I will say is, every single message that comes out of the Biden campaign, every one that mentions Donald Trump, I am going to be pissed as shit if I don't see convict, 34-time criminal, judge-determined rapist, coup-plotting seditionist, man who has bragged repeatedly about overthrowing Roe versus Wade and is coming for your birth control and IVF next. He's not just Donald Trump. He's women hater Donald Trump. He's accused by over 20 women of sexual harassment or assault. Every time you mention him, criminal, felon, traitor, liar, these are the things you need to describe him, because messages work best when they are repeated. And there is no time that you are talking to a microphone or writing a press release or a speech or doing anything where you communicate with people that is not an opportunity to communicate that he is a fucking treasonous, rapist, lying criminal who loves Vladimir Putin more than he ever has loved America.
There's been a lot of emotional tennis ball following on the left and the right as far as their rulings. Because just a couple of days ago, the right wing was calling Amy Coney Barrett a communist because she sided with two of the liberal justices, while one of the liberal justices sided with the majority on a particular case. Which is just, I don't
know even which one that was. That's interesting. They all have their little exceptions. There are little obsessions where they could be liberal or conservative, where there are things
Right.
where they differ. Because the thing that you need to know that I think we all know by now about right-wingers is they have no empathy or no ability. They literally, it's almost like they do not possess, you talk about possessing a sixth sense. They have
Yeah.
a negative sixth sense. They can't pick up anything.
Any cues.
They can't pick up any cues, any body language, any understanding of humans, anything. So if they
Right.
haven't been through it themselves, nobody's been through it. If they haven't been poor, they have no understanding of that. If they haven't fought in the military, they cannot. So the thing is that you need to know is they all have their little things because maybe they had an experience. And we saw this. I wrote a piece on this 15 years ago now on the
Right.
Republican senators, this group of Republican senators who were good on like one issue each. Why? Because you'd find out, why is that guy so good on mental health? Oh, his daughter is schizophrenic. Of course, he understands that one, doesn't give a shit about anything else, right? And you see this again and again with them. So they're calling her a communist on that. It doesn't change the fact 6 of them sitting there are right-wingers or Republicans or both in robes. Call them whatever you want. But I always liked it. I'm sorry, it's my phrase. You don't have to use it, but I thought it was alliterative. If you stop calling them to the Supreme Court justices, you just call them Republicans in robes or right-wingers in robes. That's what they are. That is that they've predetermined conclusions to every decision they make. And when they make more moderate decisions, again, it may be because one of them had some weird experience with something where they actually, oh my God, they had an experience like a normal person on something, and they maybe understand that one thing, or it's because they're trying to help Trump and not seem too radical because they don't want, which they've done a little bit around abortion and IVF and things like that, because they don't want Trump to lose. Understand that's where it's coming from. And again, I do think it would be a uniting campaign at this point for Biden to stand up and for top judiciary Democrats to stand up and say, look, this court has proven itself thoroughly corrupt. They haven't reported gifts in the millions. They obviously are owned by the right wing. They vacation with them. They go on nice little yacht rides with them. They don't report gifts that they get. They lie about what their positions are. For the very reason of the fact that this country has grown hugely since, what was the last time we added judges to the court? 1867. Due to the fact of how much bigger and more complicated this country is, and how right-wing and unrepresentative and frankly corrupt these guys are, we are going to expand the court. Okay? No, we're not going to pack the court. We're going to expand the court. We're going to grow the court. Use whatever word you want to use, but this court cannot represent an America going into the future. It can't.
I agree. I mean, I also think that there's that the smaller it gets, the less representative it gets, no matter what the color or the politics of the people involved, because it becomes again closer to like an administration's cabinet size than it does to actually reflective of the greater legal questions that are out there that are going to get increasingly complex. And that's the thing. If you have bigger freedom, if you have bigger freedoms, your laws become more complex because you're threading a needle. It's the fact that we're as free as we are, that we have so many gradations of murder and assault and all those things. Because if it was just 10 commandments, you just go, anybody who kills anybody, you chop their hands off and throw them in a fire. We don't have that.
That's always fun. Handmaid's Tale America is a ton of fun. Do you know how, and again, not putting you on the spot here, but do you know how many Americans we had? I think it was 1867, something like that, the last time we added a Supreme Court justice, like through the Supreme Court.
I don't know. I've got to go about 100 million.
If you don't know, I'll just say it.
Less?
I'm just asking for. It was between 36 and 37 million people.
Right.
We now have 350 million people. I don't remember what it is, and this one I really don't know, but I feel like it was closer to 5 to 10% or something, maybe more than that, of the cases they used to accept. They now accept less than 1% of cases. There is a case, and we've done this with some of the other courts. We've expanded other courts, right? Just not the Supreme Court. There is a case to be made wholly separate from the politics of it and from how right-wing and unrepresentative this court is. They can't do their job anymore. They don't have the personnel in this country has grown tenfold. Okay. We have, our technology has changed 100 times over. The truth of the matter is everybody says 13. I mean, sure, that would help in terms of politically, and it would help them take more cases. I think that 13 you want to start with, I think they should head towards 17. I think they need to be able to have a rotating bench, of people that can, so that, like certain other courts do, so not every justice has to look at every case, so they can at least accept, a higher percentage of cases. And that also depoliticizes things, because you don't know which justices are going to be put on which cases.
That's right. And it's like a rotation of, let's say you had 15 justices, 10 of them work on any particular case, and everybody's got an overlap. I want to bring up one thing.
We need that anyhow, just for how big our country is.
Agreed. I want to bring up one thing. So again, in that kind of tennis ball back and forth, in one of the cases, and this is the case I think that that Kagan sided with the majority on, actually punted these Florida and Texas laws against government interaction with social media companies that came up around the pandemic, but also have been a cause celeb of the right wing for quite some time. And this is the idea that the government has no business, nor should it be allowed. Yeah, should they be able to talk to Twitter?
I'm Matt Taibbi, and I need a new gig. Sorry,
yeah, exactly. So they, Florida and Texas both made laws about this, and the Supreme Court denied them and punted them back to the lower courts to kind of hash out whether there was actual overreach, because they said in a blanket sense it is not against the rules for a government to interact with these. And it's obvious to anybody who looks, because they call them up all the time and go, we have a terrorist threat, and some of your accounts are linked to this terrorist threat because we have the emails. We know that they're linked to this. We need to let you guys know. Or there's a child that's been abducted and someone's trying to sell them on Facebook, like that kind of stuff. The government is and should and is responsible for being, in interaction with these groups, in the same way that if you kidnap somebody and hit them in a fucking Target, in the dressing room in there, they would have the right to barge into the fucking place
talk to Target
and go, hey, right. Or this is an ongoing thing. It's now there's a group of people who are using the way you've got things set up so that they can take advantage of your dressing rooms as a way of abducting people. And this is, you need to fix this or recognize that we're going to fix it for you. That's completely reasonable. And that's what the court ultimately said. So the same, a couple weeks, that the court says the president can do anything he wants effectively, and you can't ask him about his motivation on it. They also gave the government power to address social media companies, and nobody can say, fuck you, back off anymore. Which I suppose if Trump was in power, they would be celebrating this. But leading into an election, this benefits, the good-natured people of the Biden administration tremendously.
If you combine those two cases and you look at the fact that the Biden people would easily be able to justify this as election security in our country, you can't ask his motivations. It's an official act. Thanks, guys, at the Supreme Court. And by the way, again, this has been a big issue for me. I've talked about a lot. I'm not going to get into my big thing on how we've become as much First Amendment extremists in this country as we have Second Amendment, and some people on the left are responsible for that, who think that disinformation should be protected in the same manner as information. Well, I have bad news for you. You can't run a democracy that way if nobody knows what the actual truth is. But I'm going to leave that conversation for another day, that we need to look at models like France and Germany. Germany, by the way, you may know, Nazi symbols are illegal. They're still a democracy somehow. I mean, even though they've said that certain extremism is too dangerous. Okay. That's another conversation for another day. But the conversation for this day is for the president and for the administration to not go in to Twitter, Facebook, and any other place and root out literally every fucking single Russian, Saudi, Chinese, whatever, bot account, fake account, or even just people from those countries who are putting stuff up on Twitter that we're seeing in America that are inciting violence. Guess what? Under no interpretation of the First Amendment does a Saudi prince have the right to free speech in the United States. None. Under no interpretation of the First Amendment does some people in a warehouse in fucking Moldova or somewhere hired by Vladimir Putin to put up bullshit have free speech in the United States. Biden should use his powers they've given him to go and regulate social media, and every bot that's amplifying Trump's bullshit, every bot that's amplifying stuff against Biden. I mean, really, not just every one of those, every goddamn bot. It's not even about the politics. They have no,
Right.
I mean, it's about the principle. They have no right to influence our election, and yet they are. And so they are intimidating people offline. They are pulling all sorts of shit. And so the fact of the matter is,
maybe
the government
this
should be able to go in and say, you don't have a First Amendment right. Sorry, you all are not American citizens. I don't know why my Siri turned on. I apologize.
That happens.
You all are not American citizens, and you're getting your ass, and at least have some period before an election, I would say now.
Yeah.
But kick them off. They don't have a right to be there, especially if they're not under their actual. You can debate a little more if you want to allow people on there who are using their real names. But certainly all the bots need to come off. And I would say anybody inciting insurrection, doing anything, I don't give a fuck if it's President Erdogan or Orban. They do not have free speech rights in America. Fuck them.
Yeah.
Kick them off.
Yeah. Well, and I would argue that like maybe there's an executive order from the president at this point that says social media companies operating in the United States must do due diligence, best of their ability, to mark all bots on their accounts with an asterisk.
Yep.
That
Even that would be fine, because then you would know what we're talking about.
every single name of if it's a bot or if it's from a foreign account must be marked. If this account originates overseas, and anybody, by the way, if you're a foreigner living abroad, in the same way that you need to show more ID than the average American when you vote, because you can go up with because you live in the neighborhood and the people at the place know you versus you're overseas. The same thing would be true if you want to be on social media as an American. You have to prove it,
right. I mean,
to get past that wall. Nobody has
a
a guarantee.
Similar sort of
Freedom of speech is not freedom to everybody's megaphone. I think it's actually a great idea, and I wouldn't rule it out.
No, and this is what is done. This is what numerous democracies that have handled, again, disinformation a hell of a lot better than us do at least some of these kinds of things. I mean, in France, they have, like a 48-hour news blackout before the election to make sure there's not a last-minute oppo drop by Vladimir Putin into their election. I mean, these are all ideas that we need to be looking at, because disinformation and foreign actors, the minute we start accepting that they're going to play a role in deciding our elections, like, who are we? And what the fuck are we even doing? Like, what are we doing? You know, I mean, this is our government for us. We should be making the decisions. We should be making the arguments. Again, how long, if it's a real account and it's, but if it's some prince, in Saudi Arabia who hacksawed up an American living journalist, for example, guess what? You know what? Maybe his ass should be kicked off of there too. Because I don't think
in the United States, you should, again,
he can put his stuff up in other countries, but we don't need to have it show up in the United States of America, as far as I'm concerned. He has no rights here.
Yeah, I would also say that within the United States, you could set up that there are restrictions on what those accounts can say. They can exist if they want to use them as official PR outlets or whatever, whatever. But the idea that they operate on the same kind of just free flow of information zone is absurd, anyways. But I do think there is something to the idea that these two laws in particular, because I think the Biden administration was waiting for this ruling from the Supreme Court about a week ago to act on, dealing with some of the obvious election interference shit that was going on. And this ruling allows them to. So the DOJ, they could set the DOJ right now and the FBI on straight up, because it is foreign influence. It is not like, well, these are just foreigners who want to have a say.
It's foreign interference. It is.
Yes.
At least if it were even, you could argue, and I'm sure there's some of this, but at least if you could argue that, that it was organically sprung up. And I'm sure there are some people in those countries just expressing whatever dumbass opinion, that they have. I'm not saying they all do, but some of them. But anything that is an organized effort by a foreign entity to undermine the integrity of our election should be a no-brainer. Shut them down.
And that goes to the president, according to the Supreme Court, has the ability to do whatever the rat fuck he wants against those groups, bot farms, whatever, to shut them down.
Please do it. Please let us have an election. Yeah,
the SEAL Team 6 stuff that everybody talks about, let me tell you something. Sending in, let's say, a group of CIA agents to collapse entire bot farms overseas that are affecting our elections, sending them into, Macedonia or India or China or someplace like that to, kill the power at one of these facilities is now an official act that the president that would not be illegal
protecting our elections
because he's protecting our elections, according to the Supreme Court, as of today.
So, I mean, again, I don't know what else I have to say. And please, Democrats have the spine to do this. Please, Biden people, understand what's at stake here. Understand what happens if this cretin Trump wins and what we're going to have to deal with and what, that we may never be a democracy again. It's not the time to be cautious. And you've been given a power. We're not asking you to break any laws. Don't want you to.
Right.
Just act within the power you have, whether it's going into certain key polling places in states, whether it's stopping foreign actors on Twitter. Do everything you can in your power to protect our elections so Americans are deciding them. Okay?
Yeah, I just feel like
bad enough.
The big news out of this is the fact that effectively the Supreme Court took off the gloves for the Biden administration in a bunch of areas that are the sort of specialty of the right wing and the specialty of like the foreign actors that are trying to influence our election. That they basically said, oh, okay, anything the president does to protect our elections, because this was really about whether or not he could call Raffensperger and say, give me 11,780 votes, right?
Right.
The Biden now has extraordinary latitude in this area.
For example, I mean, what service is Mike Johnson using to monitor his son's porn? I think we have to look into that. I mean, there's various different services out there. Some are better than others. Maybe he's overpaying. And we should I think we can help him out by having the Biden people look in and really contact him quite publicly. Maybe have a public conversation, say, look, dude, I know for please stop my son from using porn.com. You're paying $6.99 a month, but for my son is a sick fuck, and I'd rather have him not use porn. You could only pay $3.99 a month. And I think maybe you want to do that. You want to look into these kinds of things. That's all I'm saying, Hal.
I will say, and again, and Tammy in the chat room was saying, Hal, the SCOTUS Sleazy 6 is not going to extend the same immunity for official acts to Biden as they have for Trump. Mark my words. It doesn't matter. They didn't say for Trump. This is the presidency in general. They made a general ruling, so they don't. They made
a decision. It doesn't. They
can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Extend it to Biden.
They can't not. Right.
I mean, and it really is. It is up to Democrats to understand this game. It is up to Democrats to, right now, we have so many folks. And look, the first Biden ad out of the gate was calling Trump a felon. I thought it was brilliant and beautiful. It's one of the reasons I was disappointed that it took till midway through the debate to hear almost any of that stuff out of Biden's mouth. So, but they started off that way. I'm hoping they get back to it. But I can tell you, we got a whole lot of people on our side, who I just watched, Jamie Raskin and Eric Swalwell and Jasmine Crockett and Gretchen Whitmer and people that are out there kicking Republican ass and are playing this game the way it needs to be played. So I'm asking the Biden administration to please use the powers you've been given and in a legal, constitutional, according to the Supreme Court way, make sure our elections are not destroyed or altered, let's say, by the actions of foreign actors or right-wing cheats in our country or others, that they are fair. Because if they are fair, if everybody who should be able to vote, or close to everybody, we'll never get everybody, but if close to everybody who should be able to vote votes, they can't win. They win because of voter suppression. They win because of scaring people away and disinformation and lies, and this is how they win. If you stop that stuff, this becomes not, I will say it, this might not even be a close election. So, even with
I would say there's
even
probably
with the New York Times, who, by the way, you should unsubscribe from immediately.
Agreed.
Go ahead.
I would argue that there is definitely, whether there's an official one or not right now, there's a powwow going on, if there haven't already. Because I think this president is the kind of president that goes, okay, if this happens, we'll do this. If this happens, we'll do that. And then they don't need to meet again about it because they know the variants that are possible there. They knew basically what was going to happen, which was they're going to kick some immunity back, and then ultimately the thing that concerns Sotomayor the most, which is reasonable, is that you can't question their motives, and therefore without motive you don't have a crime, and therefore it allows them to hide most crimes. That's the fear. And again, that goes to the having to impeach them first. Carl in our chat was saying, that I think Barbara McQuaid was saying you don't have to impeach a president to convict them. I agree. This is the court making an end run around that,
trying to
so
make
you
it
would
much
have
more
to.
difficult.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do.
I'm not a lawyer. Again, do you have to have a motive? I mean, look, if you see somebody shoot somebody else, and you
can have
determine
multiple
their motive,
motives,
but
nope.
but you have them on video.
You don't have to
doing
establish
it, and the
motive.
witnesses
It just
seeing
helps
them.
with the jury, right?
That's what I'm saying. You still can. So they've made it harder, but they haven't made it impossible. And I think they've made it harder because they know that, in a way,
because he needs
Nixon
all the help he can get.
Take it down. Well, they know that if Trump gains power, he will commit crimes, and they want to make it harder to take him down for that, because they know, in the same way you and I know, that again, the way when I go back home to New York to visit, I go straight to pizza and bagel places, because I love Cincinnati, but that's not our specialty. In the same way, when I go back, I immediately go to bagel and pizza places. When Donald Trump opens his mouth, he immediately goes to lies. It is just what he does. It is just he immediately thinks up, what can I do that's illegal that will help me? It's the only thing he knows how to do. So understanding, they get it, the Supreme Court gets it, and they want to make it harder for us to take him down. As long as he's issuing every right-wing edict and act while he's in office, they want to make it harder. And again, so yes, I'm not claiming that this act was perfect, but you know what? This act also gives us some other powers to prevent him from ever getting there, and actually strengthen our democracy and make it a better democracy. Because whether it's Biden, Trump, or anybody else, disinformation should not be electing people.
Agreed. I also think that, because some people are really like flipping out about this in particular. And like I said, I have a feeling that this will be a lot more narrowly read after it goes back to check-in and comes back up. And there'll be another ruling on it after they've decided, well, we think this is official and this isn't. The Supreme Court is going to have to rule again on it if anybody tries to appeal it. Because Trump will appeal that all of it was official. So it doesn't matter what Chutkan decides, okay, this wasn't. He's going to appeal it to the Supreme Court. Just like everything was supposed
to get privilege that he ever did, right? Like everything,
right.
That's what this.
It also does not cover his retention of classified documents. It does not at all, because no private citizen has the right to do it, and the fact that he walked out with them is not. You can't steal stuff as part of your official duties, and he has a declassification process, and he's aware that the declassification process didn't happen because he said it to Mark Meadows, biographer, saying if I was president, I could declassify. So we're fine
also,
in that
last
regard.
Thing, it does not cover all the KFC crispy thigh juice that he slurps down every night that gives him more and more heart disease, so that he's probably more likely to die in office than Joe Biden.
On that note, Cliff Schechter, thanks for being here. By the way, he's worth a follow on the Twitter machine while it still exists. And I would like to, what's your current schedule on your show? Because I think you were just starting to establish it, but I think are you growing? Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, and we're going to start the big promotion thing today. I'm going to I'm going away for a little bit, but I'm going to start July 15th having memberships and a live stream. We're approaching 50,000 subscribers at my YouTube channel, which is Cliff's Edge. Please come and subscribe. We're going to start pushing the memberships. You'll see what you'll get for that, which will be a lot of great shit. Maybe make Hal come up and say hi to you or something. Who knows?
Yep.
Or maybe Tara. You may get everybody.
Right.
I don't know. We'll see what we'll do. But yeah, please come by. Please subscribe, and you'll see the live stream will be starting mid-July, as well as memberships and all sorts of other great stuff. So
excellent. All right. Thanks so much, Cliff.
Let's win this thing.
Yeah, I insist.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, brother. I look forward to talking to you, in the weeks to come and extending this conversation, because I feel like there's a lot of unwrapped surprises that are going to come from this. So, anyways, thanks for being on, brother.
Let's all remember that no matter what anybody has to say about the debate and this and that and the other thing, 3 days before the RNC, Donald Trump is being sentenced as a criminal. I think the media may just pay a little bit of attention to that. And we can maybe
he also doesn't have
that.
a VP yet, and every choice is hated by the right wing. That's another conversation. We'll see. I would love to talk to you when he finally, if he does, decide on one. I want to have that conversation with you, Cliff, about the all negatives and very few pluses for him and whoever that is.
Is Putin available or Medvedev or one of those guys?
Medvedev is the dude. Erdogan, right?
Yeah.
Anyways,
all right.
Thanks, brother.
Take care.
Right.
Yep,
Cheers. There he goes, ladies and gentlemen, Cliff Schechter, and joining us now, I'll put her in the right here as I grab the link and grab the link and pop her in here, is our dear friend Tara Dublin, who I'm sure has a thing or two to say about a thing or two in this particular thing. There she is, ladies and gentlemen. Tara Dublin does indeed rock.
Yes, she does.
Yes, she does. So much to talk about in regard to this.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean? What do you mean? There's nothing's been going on the last few days.
No.
It's been cool and calm and great for Democrats, and we've never been strong. What in the entire fuck is this world that we're living in, for reals and serious? Because same day
because of the wonderful
Bannon
things he does.
In prison, Donald Trump has immunity. Some of the time, partial immunity. Let the states decide. We don't need it. We can't make any real decisions here. I'm just like, what the fuck? I'm really just like, what the fuck right now. But let's all remember that having a king might be fun. So I rewrote the presidential anthem earlier. Instead of Hail to the Chief, it'll now be Hail to the King. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. Hail to the King. He has chosen to stay in power.
Hail to the King. Sorry, dumb Donald Trump. Right.
We kneel to him one and all. Hail to the King as we pledge our subjugation. It's fine. It's fine. We don't need rights. This country wasn't founded on giving everybody equality and freedom from oppression and a monarch or an oligarch. It's all good. Let's just all take a breath. Okay, so here's the thing.
Sure.
Vote for all of the Democrats everywhere.
Yeah.
You don't have to be in love with the Democrat. You just have to make sure that the Republicans never get back in power ever again. It's all we have to do. That's all we have to do.
Correct. Yeah, at this point, we are. There was an element, I think, that we all believed about the institutions like the Supreme Court and sort of the normal rudders of government that exist that will keep it going. That you can kind of you didn't have to white knuckle. You could white glove your democracy, not white knuckle your democracy. But for the time being, until the Republican Party is a faint memory of a really bad fart in an elevator. We have to.
Or a shart on a debate stage.
Yes, indeed. You're welcome.
If people are aware of the shart. That needs to be our mission.
I'm trying. I'm constantly reposting.
I tried to help you. I'm here. Well, we'll get it back out there. We're
it's going to be a constant reminder. Believe me.
Oh,
yeah,
it's do we have it as? We have it on a loop. We have it as like a little 3-second. Just we can throw it out there whenever we need to. Do we have that?
I'm making a shirt that says 11640. Because that's the C-SPAN, that's the timestamp of when he does it. Midas Touch finally broadcast it. Very good.
Did they? Excellent. Well, now people will see it.
Yeah, it's all over my
birthday,
eagle ear.
Jordy,
Caught it. Yeah.
By the way, it's Jordy's birthday today. My heroes.
Oh yes, that's right. Happy birthday, Jordy. Good people over there. Now, a couple of things. One is I have, like I said, I think there's this weird crisscross of when the reality starts to settle in, like post debate. There was this idea that Biden's fucked, the right wing's going to run away with it. They were all celebrating and that kind of stuff right afterwards. And then in less than 24 hours, Donald Trump was said moderates instead of moderators, couldn't keep a thought together, had a rambly, empty rally and did not manage to jump on any of the layups that Biden gave him. Like, you can't argue that Biden didn't, by stumbling a couple of times or his stutter showing up, which, by the way, I now believe is caused by him being downwind from that fart machine, that he was just choking. He literally choked.
Well, he also had a full schedule that day, which they never should have given him.
Right.
They should have given him a free day to rest his voice and have a lozenge or two if he had a sore throat from over preparing, because there is such a thing as being too prepared. There is such a thing as getting yourself psyched for something to your own detriment. And again, but what matters the most is that the narrative should never be what someone did in 90 minutes versus what they did for the last 3.5 years. It's not like Joe Biden didn't go up there and negate all of his good work. He was ambushed, in my opinion, and a lot of the decisions that the campaign made that day weren't good ones. He should have been given the left side of the screen instead of the right. He should have chosen, the fact that they didn't let them have any notes, the fact that they didn't fact check in real time.
I mean, having notes is one thing, taking notes is another, and Biden does take notes during them, and that's, he did. The problem is that, Trump didn't, and there was this, again, what ultimately happened, we can kind of reassess what went on. The result was the most shocking thing. First of all, I don't know if you saw my redo of it afterwards, but I went through the whole thing again after it was over.
Oh,
and that's where we found, where we heard the sharp.
One of them was, that's where you heard the sharp, but also you heard all of the lies that Donald Trump was telling.
Right.
Because,
and Biden's response was not nearly as bad the second time through, because I think there was so much tension about his voice and that he stammered a couple of times and that he was trying to get things out in the time allotted because they got 2 minutes, and he was very aware of the clock. So they've been working the clock apparently to try and shoehorn as much shit in as possible. That was clear from his debate prep. That's what the family was mad about. Totally right on. But rewatching it, I was like, this isn't nearly as bad as I felt the first time watching it, and he nailed it. And we find out that Hispanic voters who were watching it on Univision, especially those who watched it with a translation, who didn't hear the rasp in his voice and just heard the substance of what he said versus the substance of what Trump said, they all went for Biden, hand over fist compared to Trump.
Well, the truth will do that to a person, I mean, seriously. And then, first of all, now that we saw what it was, because CNN really wasn't very forthcoming in what we could have expected. It's not going to be this, and it's not going to have that, and we're not going to do this, and we're not going to do that. But the fact that the two moderators sat there like they were children of the corn, like two rancid cabbages would have been better, because at least they were like, but you didn't answer the question. The question was this. They didn't fact check. They did the only decent thing that the two of them did at any point during the night was, even after Trump went off the rails, they would say, well, the question was this. And even though he didn't answer, the questions that he didn't answer were the really, really, really important ones, like the child tax credit and child care and all of those things that he couldn't speak to. He kept going back to the border. And now millions of people are coming across, and we're being invaded, and the black jobs, and they're taking your jobs, and all of that. And also the reissuing and the rehashing of all of the same talking points he used in 2020 that never came true. Like Joe Biden was going to drive this economy into the ground, and we would have the worst depression, the likes of which you've never seen. We've seen the likes of the things that you've seen, and we've lived through them, and we've survived them. The same threats that he made in 2020 are the same threats he's making now, and they're not going to come true again also. Joe Biden didn't run this country into the ground. In fact, Joe Biden lifted this country from off of its knees and stood us up and grew the greatest economy in the world. And that is one of the most important takeaways from the debate. It doesn't matter that, maybe his new motto should be speak softly and carry a big economy, because what he's doing is less important than how he's telling us he's doing it, right? So everyone needs to forget about the delivery system and think about the message. And yes, we all had that same reaction, because this thing was so hyped. It was hyped like Frazier versus Ali, right? It was like the Thriller in Manila, but it was in Atlanta. And the fact that they weren't stressing that they were debating 10 minutes away from where Donald Trump was processed and his mugshot was taken and he was given a prisoner number, that they were debating in the state where he committed election fraud. None of those things were brought up until about halfway through, when it should have been what they started with. They should not have started with Joe Biden. Everybody blames you for for inflation, and he's like, what? And Trump is like, shrug, 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 puckered ain't his face, and then eventually they're like, well, you're a convicted felon, and he's like,
well, that was okay. So there are a couple of points. Like I said, one of the things that kept coming back with the undecideds, whoever those crazy people are that they talked to, less than 2% of viewers weren't already decided on who they're going to vote for. And by the way, nobody changed their vote to the other person afterwards. The question was, did people decide they weren't going to vote for Biden because Trump is awful, but Biden's old? Nobody's going to fucking do that, especially the people who watch this. So the 2% that watched, that hadn't made up their mind, they, in large part, went to Joe Biden. And a big chunk of that was because Trump wouldn't answer the question. He kept just kind of yammering on. And the only place that
hella racist and xenophobic.
Yep.
And all of the things that turn off minority voters. So, if you were truly listening instead of judging it as a reality show competition, which it isn't, which is what Donald Trump turned politics into.
Never mind the reality show that we live in, that coming in second is the way you win. In all of these situations, there's only been one, the other example is there's only been one American Idol winner who did better than the second place, and that was the very first one. That was Kelly Clarkson.
Yes, she did.
Everybody else.
Yes, she did. We don't remember anybody else.
Right. The second place always had a career. From that point on that's how a lot of those things and how they operate. And what Philip Ittner, who's over in Ukraine right now, a lot of them, obviously because of the time and all that stuff, they didn't watch the whole thing, or are they going to? What they saw were clips of it. And Biden's stuff clips better. Ironically enough, the overall is very uncomfortable to watch for a bunch of Democrats, but it clips better than Trump's does, because clips of Trump make him, it's clear, like you could just hit him one after the other. What you were saying, where like you didn't answer the question, and he said stuff like black jobs, and we had H2O, and he shit himself, and so.
He said he didn't have sex with a porn star. It's like, you fucking asshole. You're being sentenced a week from 2 weeks from that night, but now a week from Thursday, for fucking a porn star.
Right.
And then lying about it and paying her to shut up. So how? And the moderators are like, President Biden, you're fucking up really bad. Donald Trump. It's just like, what? It all was so imbalanced, and that CNN was doing, and it wasn't an official sanctioned presidential debate. It really is ultimately meaningless, because again, we have the truth on our side, they don't, and that you could go back to again and again, go back to the Biden record versus the Trump record. And really, it used to matter. It used to matter what someone's record was, right? And even you want to go back and look at the history of presidential debates, Hillary Clinton blew him away in every single one. And then back in 2012, Obama lost miserably in his first debate to Mitt Romney.
Right.
And still, we all know what happened there. And also, again, Donald Trump is an adjudicated rapist, convicted felon, and he is not done with his trials in any way, shape, or form.
No.
This new ruling is going to do something to the Jack Smith trial. We don't even know what yet, but it's not going to stop the stolen documents or the election fraud trials. Right. And it's not going to stop them from being sentenced a week from Thursday. And this tells you how crazy the times are that we live in. Everybody is getting their knickers in a twist over a debate performance when Joe Biden is the most successful president since the 1960s, and Donald Trump is being sentenced a week from Thursday. They keep forgetting about those things. They keep forgetting about the things that are so fully abnormal that we've just kind of sort of absorbed and we can't focus on all of the other terrible, like Donald Trump. It came out last week that all of the new anti-Semitism, new racism, new things about the things that he said about women, new things he said about veterans, all of it never stops, never stopping. And so, again, 90 minutes versus 40 consecutive months of a successful presidency. I'm going to take someone with a sore throat and a little bit of a stutter over the fucking traitor who's about to get sentenced.
I think the Philly paper was brilliant.
Yes.
The Philly Inquirer calling for him to
Please.
step down because he's an adjudicated rapist, which should have happened a long time ago. Like, that should have been the fact that there wasn't those headlines after he was found guilty. And I think a lot of them were afraid of the maggot crowd saying that's what they're doing. They're setting this up so they could say drop out because of this thing. And so it's all fake, blah, blah, blah. They're going to say that anyways. The whole thing is like Biden had a bad night. Trump is a bad person. And I think that's going to be, is a bad human.
He had a bad administration. He had a bad administration. He had a literally deadly response to COVID. I brought that up this morning. Like, if Bob Woodward hadn't held on to that secret for his precious book, maybe millions of Americans wouldn't have died. Because Donald Trump knew exactly how deadly the coronavirus was in private, and public was like, oh.
You would have saved more maggot lives. You would have saved more MAGA people if he'd had done that.
Would have looked like a hero to people who didn't like him. Like, look what he's done. Look at him telling the truth. Look at him putting country over party. Look at him trying to save American lives. Even you and I wouldn't be able to deny that he had done something. But Donald Trump doesn't do anything that doesn't benefit himself first and foremost, and he never will. He never will. And those people who are remaining loyal are about to seriously go down with him. Look at Steve Bannon. If you think that you won anything today, you didn't, because the wheels of justice are going to keep turning. They might not turn in the same way, but they'll still turn. And they'll still catch up to people who fucking commit crimes against the United States. Steve Bannon didn't get any special exceptions, and even he went to the Supreme Court. So we have to take our victories when we get them.
Yeah, two things. One is I saw an article in the Washington Post. It was one of the editorials. So they started writing these editorials like midway through the debate, that it's all over, that's it. And they started writing these obituaries, immediately. And they couldn't stop at that point. Your editor's going to, hey, call it off. It's not turning out that way. The undecideds went to Biden. He just raised a bunch of money. It's not reading the way we thought it did. They just had to let him fucking float, and they did. So one of them was in the Washington Post. It was like Biden can learn a lot from LBJ's decision not to run, right? And the idea that he, like, for good of country, he had a terrible, because of the Vietnam War and other shit, he had terrible ratings by the public. And then as soon as he said, I'm not going to run, his approval ratings as president went to 57% and some bullshit. Okay, for the record, that decision to drop out by LBJ gave us fucking Nixon. That's what, because if LBJ had run against Nixon, because Nixon had been, vice president previous and was running on that kind of a record, it would have been an even match in that conversation, and they wouldn't have thrown in Humphrey and tried to pick up slack. The idiocy of LBJ not running again was what caused Nixon to be president. The cascade of things that happened, afterwards, because of Nixon's presidency, would have been wiped out if LBJ had just run again. And he would have won.
Yeah.
He would have. LBJ would have won. And he was, for fuck's sake, he signed the Civil Rights Act and would have continued to be president for another fucking 4 years. Like, that's...
Yep.
And the idea that you go, like, you can learn something from him. Yeah, you know what you can learn? Stay the fuck in. Secondly, this is the other part is... I'm gonna, let's see if I can show this up there.
While you're doing that, let me just remind you that if you're a fair weather Democrat and you're willing to turn your back on Joe Biden because his voice was a little hoarse and he stuttered a little in one debate after this historic record that he put up, but you're fine with Donald Trump staying in the race, fuck you. Fuck you, because I really try to avoid false equivalence, because this is false equivalence. Sure. The two candidates are not nearly the same. But if you are demanding Joe Biden drops out because you were like, oh no, his voice isn't strong, but Donald Trump can be Donald Trump talking about sharks and batteries and Hannibal Lecter and shitting his pants and doing all of the things. Fuck you. Shut up. Because you need to have, your demands need to be equal. If you're expecting something from one candidate, you need to expect the other candidate to rise up and match that. So if Donald Trump isn't going to rise to Joe Biden's level, Joe Biden's not going to sink to Donald Trump's. He's just going to keep rising up. And it's so disappointing. Like, I was embarrassed for a while for over the last couple of days, people that I admire, people that I follow, people who I thought were staunch Democrats who were like, ride or die, got your back, vote blue no matter who, were like, he's got to go. And I was like, the fuck are you saying? He is the greatest public servant we have ever elected to the presidency. He's the most experienced. He got the most shit done. And if nothing else, continue to focus on the fact that we have the greatest economy in the world post-pandemic, that Donald Trump tried to... It's basically what the Jews say. They tried to kill us. We survived. Let's eat. But on a grander scale.
Yes.
So, again, I would say stop. The MAGA messaging has been run into the ground and it doesn't make sense anymore because everything they say isn't true. And while we're still on the every accusation is a confession and he's still freaking out, just look at his Truth Social. We have to focus on the things that we know Democrats are strong, and we have an incredibly deep bench. So we have all of these wonderful Biden-Harris surrogates going around saying, this is the truth. Here's what Trump wouldn't answer. Here's what Joe Biden did answer. Here's what Joe Biden has done. Here's what Biden-Harris is going to continue to do. At the same time, there is literally no one who can step up and save Donald Trump now. Nobody. Nobody. He's getting sentenced a week from Thursday. I don't know why we aren't hammering this point even more. And this is why #louder than MAGA. We have to keep going along with that, along with the Biden brags, which has started trending, by the way, I'm very proud to say. Because we have more to vote for than we do to vote against. Even with this new ruling, we still have more to vote for. And if we can start, well, we should have started this a long time ago, but be loud, be proud to be a Democrat. Like, don't be like, we did this and we did this. Like, fuck yeah, we did this. Fuck yeah. Do you like your bridges and tunnels and safe roads? Do you like this? Do you like that? Do you like this? Thank you, Democrat. Thank you, Joe Biden. So anyway, what are you showing me here?
This is there's an important story from Wyoming. I'm here today, and I have to thank Joe Biden for making this happen. I don't like it, but he did it. So, if you don't know, there was a huge landslide on this highway in Wyoming. This is 3 weeks ago. It completely collapsed.
Of it. Thanks, MSM.
Yep. The crews had to build a temporary route around Jackson. This is it now. There's your before. There's your after, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this thing. And look at it now. The Pete Buttigieg and Department of Transportation rolled the fuck in here and solved this in 3 weeks.
Democrats deliver.
That's right. And this is state of emergency. This is the Tejon Pass landslide. This is one of the most heavily used corridors in Wyoming, and the fact that the federal government rolled in and picked up where the Wyoming state government couldn't even is not lost on the people of Wyoming, I would like to say. And
because that's why you passed Joe Biden's infrastructure bill.
Yeah,
this is why you vote for Democrats. This is why Democrats build back better for the people. I will use every catchphrase because they all are true. People of Wyoming can now drive safely there. Thank you, Democrats.
That's right. So that was, Buttigieg was trending right under the wire in Pride Month because they just finished this on the last day of Pride Month, and so I think the 30th. Yeah. No one was hurt. I think it just collapsed before. It collapsed, kind of early on, it might have been the middle of the night or something like that. But regardless, my point was, to your point, it's a red state where Biden is viewed, ubiquitously as some sort of criminal asshole, and Trump notoriously would withhold resources from states that didn't like him or didn't show fealty to him, like a fucking dictator. And Biden doesn't give a shit. Biden's putting in rural broadband and high-speed internet in Wyoming. He's rebuilding the roads. Nobody cares. It's Americans. You're Americans. And you don't have to
road isn't Democratic or Republican.
That's right.
Your safe bridge is not Democratic or Republican. It's just there. And you should be grateful that it's there. And it doesn't matter that a Democratic president put it there. What matters is that your tax dollars aren't going to fund Donald Trump's legal funds. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like,
Or keep
your
his
money is
properties
being
open.
well spent, or keep his properties open, or keep him out of prison, even though he totally belongs there. So,
Right.
you know, I know, I hold your nose and vote blue if you have to. Now, here's the question, because this is a brand new story to me. I just want to ask, did any Republican who voted against the infrastructure bill take credit for this?
Oh, yeah.
Because we saw Lauren Boebert do the same thing in Colorado after she voted against the infrastructure bill, but then she bragged
Oh, J.D.
about
Vance
something
just did
getting
it
fixed in
yesterday.
her. Okay,
About
great.
the
So the
infrastructure
Republicans
bill.
are still doing that. Great. Okay. So Republicans are still going to take credit for things that Democrats did even after they voted against
And I'm
it.
fine with
Super.
that, because
Awesome.
what an easy tee up for an ad or a way to mess with them, because it's so obvious. Their vote is record,
Yeah.
and their statement is going to be record. Put them right next to each other and go, "What an asshole!" Like, you know what I mean? That's
Right,
all you
just
got
like
to
their
do.
votes against the bipartisan border bill because it came from Democrats and a Democratic president would sign it, and Donald Trump said, "Don't sign it because then I won't have anything to yell about on the campaign trail."
Right.
Or at a debate stage where he's like, "Well, you asked me about children, but I'm going to scream about the border. You
Now,
asked
here's
me
the
about
other
are we
thing.
better off, and I'm going to scream about the border."
I'm curious, and this might be obviously this is probably being hashed out in the Oval Office and Office of Legal Counsel and shit like that right now. But does the SCOTUS ruling today affect Biden's border executive orders, which they were worried about? The reason he didn't do them initially was because they don't quite follow the law completely. They could be they're a useful emergency procedure, but if you can't prove they're an emergency, if you're in court, somebody will go, like an activist group or whatever, will say you can't close the border like this, or you can't do these kind of things, you can't deny people asylum based on this because you don't have the right to. But the president, apparently, according to the Supreme Court as of today, can do whatever the fuck he wants if he even presents it, whether it's true or not, as for the good of the country or in his due diligence as president.
And
So,
what stops him now from just removing all Republican federal judges and replacing them with Democrats he's chosen himself? What prevents him
Right.
from doing that? If he has immunity
I
now
think
on certain
he can't
events,
vacate those,
certain
but
immunities.
Right. He can't vacate those, but he could order the DOJ, for example, to review the financial, I guess, statements of every member of the U.S. judiciary. He could do that. It's not something you'd
Just
normally...
the Republican ones. He could
Right.
just go after the Republican ones.
Shit, I think he could go
How
after
do you
all
like
of
that,
them just so you
MAGA?
don't have anybody
How
on the
do you
tape.
like that?
Yeah. I say
This
fuck
is
them.
a dangerous precedent. This is a very scary
Yeah.
road we're heading down. Very scary. Because any victory that you think this hands Trump, it gives the same power to Biden and any
Right.
other Democratic president that follows. So let's just say, for shits and giggles, we reelect Biden and Harris, and then like week and a half later, Biden's like, "I'm out, president. She's going to pick the judge. They're in charge now, and they're going to continue this good work, and they're going to just stay here in power forever now."
Yeah.
Who's going to stop him? Who's
Right.
going to stop him? You? No, because he has immunity over certain things. And you want to kick it down to the states? Awesome. Those cases will be tied up for years in the lower courts. That's what the lower courts do. So giving the states, certain rights here, and then certain, like, there's wiggle room to play with here, to fuck with for years. It's a very scary precedent to set, because
Right. Well, here's
it's
okay.
there's
Again, I think this is.
interpretations, there's states'
I honestly
rights, there's
think-
all of those things.
I honestly think, and this is genuine, I think the SCOTUS that are on Trump's side have looked at the evidence involved in what he's done, because they're reviewing themselves in, like, was this all official acts, or was this none official acts, or some zone in between? So they had to review all the evidence
I'm listening.
that at least that is being presented, and his defense, and so that's part of the delay. And I think the obvious answer, I think most of us agree, is that presidents are immune from things that are a part of their official act and the benefit of the country. But if they do it just for the benefit of themselves and they use official acts for that, that isn't necessarily covered. And so there's some parsing of that. And where they tied the hands of people trying to figure that out, at least in the courts, is in the inability to question the motives around it. Now, Congress can do that because they have oversight. They can actually have an impeachment. This was, I think, their way of making it so that you have to impeach them before you can charge them. I think they liked that thing and they wanted that in place, and it's obviously not the case. I think that's what the Supreme Court on that side was doing. But in looking at their kind of parsing of this, it looks like they looked at the evidence and know that he is fucking guilty. And they're trying to punt this as far as they can because they know they can get rid of a couple of charges on him, maybe, right? They can get a couple of things. But that phone call to Raffensperger where he's like, fellas, help me out. All I need are this many. Blah, blah, blah. And then the fact that all of his other legal cases had failed at that point, specifically, that proves that was a personal, a campaign, phone call as opposed to a presidential phone call, right? And I think they know that looking at this. So what they're trying to do is just punt this past the election. There's an element of the Jack Smith case in terms of, and in Jan 6, covering what he said at the ellipsis, or at the, whatever, on the stage where he was saying, I'll go down there with you peacefully and patriotically and all that shit, covering that and allowing him to use a free speech defense in what he posted later on after it failed, because he started getting real magnanimous after it fell apart. Let's be honest. That 3 hours where he didn't do anything wasn't him not doing anything. That was him seeing if it actually was successful. And then when it got driven back and he failed, then you start going, everybody disperse. See, I'm being good. That's what he's trying to do. And
right. And is sitting on your diapered ass eating Happy Meals and watching an insurrection on TV and not doing fuck all to stop it, is that an official act? Do you get immunity for not stopping an insurrection? I mean, one that you caused, or is it? And also, the narrative that Nancy Pelosi had anything to do with the planning of January 6th, that she had anything to do with planning her own failed assassination attempt. Democrats don't think like that. Why would we want to stop the certification of an election we legitimately won? Right. We wouldn't. We don't. Right. We don't do that. You did that. MAGA did that. And the fact that he gets away with letting it happen, sitting on his ass, shoving food in his face like he's watching fucking cartoons, it makes me sick. There was a fucking noose hung for Mike Pence. God damn it. It's just the way that history gets to be rewritten because everyone's worried that Putin's going to put some polonium in their tea or release the blackmail, whatever the fuck the Russians have on the Republicans.
Right.
This is how we got here. Thanks so much.
By the way, you're watching House Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide. This is Tara Dublin Rock. She has a book.
Everything's fine.
Right over her shoulder, The Sound of Settling. Check it out and go to taradublinrocks.com and you can get a copy of it. We'll talk about that more in a moment. Hit the like, subscribe, and all that kind of stuff. Share the show out. Always helps us out. Now, obviously, the big fear is that if somebody like Trump, with the powers that the Supreme Court has given him, given the president right now, scary thought. The powers that Biden has now because of them open up a broad area where in the protection of the country, I think, I said this earlier, I was like, well, I guess technically if you're faithfully executing the laws of the country or protecting the citizenry, I think it would be within the official acts of the president to guarantee that a rapist never be in charge of women's rights.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, you could make an argument that that's now a legal impetus for Biden to do what he has to do, right? I don't think he's going to do anything illegal, and I don't think he'll test the boundaries of what's legal, and he's not going to go into the John Yoo zone of, it's not torture, it's enhanced interrogation zone, but that sounds like something presidential to me.
He's also not going to do anything that's going to benefit him and no one else. He's not going to abuse. If he never abused the office prior to this ruling, he's certainly not going to start now because he's been a devoted, selfless public servant for his entire adult life. It is not in his character to do anything for himself first. This is why he's a great president, because he's able to see the country as the country and able to see individuals as individuals and also treat everybody equally. He loves you whether or not you voted for him. He loves the American people. And I would say that if you had to have a contest between who loves America more, Nancy Pelosi or Joe Biden, that would be a tough contest because both of them are so devoted to our democracy that there is nothing they would do to put it in any further jeopardy. They're doing everything they can to preserve our democracy. So I don't see Joe Biden abusing this new ruling. I see him being able to look at it pragmatically, and he's also surrounded by an incredibly strong group of people. He put strong, smart people in his cabinet for a reason. He has wonderful advisors. So they're not going to sit around and go, how can we fuck with Republicans now?
Right.
It'll be more like, all right, well, we're here. How do we make sure the country remains safe? How do we make sure Americans go to sleep every single night feeling secure that they'll wake up in a free country like they did when they went to bed? It's really, for the Democrats, it's about preserving the democracy. For Republicans, it's about ending democracy. And so if you want to end the American experiment that the founders began, I have a lot of problems with you. But if you are someone who wants to take what the founders did and improve upon it and make sure democracy is unshakable, that nobody could come in and fuck with us, that's why you're voting for Democrats. And to look at it, I know that there's a lot that people can't look at objectively. They are in it emotionally, particularly, MAGA people who are still like, I'll vote for a felon who wears a diaper, and proudly so.
Right.
That's
I'll vote for Epstein's wingman. Right. On
its face, like if you can be objective and look at the CVs side by side, but if you can't, we're going to be louder than MAGA. We're going to make sure that you guys understand that we might have been given this, but we're not going to run with it and make your lives miserable because of it. It's like, we don't think like that. Nope. We don't think about, oh, you gave us this, let's see how we can fuck with you. That's not what we do. We don't do that. That's what MAGA does. We don't do that.
Right. But that's also, I think, an important part of this is that the ruling and its stating is that it's about the presidents in this instance. It seems to be in what I've been able to read so far, and I'm sure there's more, that will be kicked downhill.
And we're not legal scholars, you and I.
Right.
So,
but I mean, a lot of this is fairly self-evident because neither is Clarence Thomas apparently at this point, and I have questions about the scholarship of Alito. Because it seems like what they know is a legal cul-de-sac and nothing else. A legal scholar would know all the opinions they have and all the counters for it and the kind of continuing argument. These guys seem to know the one thing that they were sent in is like a heat-seeking missile against a particular bill, act, or right that they've been sent there to destroy and nothing else. It's really odd. Or to create, the supreme executive power of the presidency. But it would seem to me that it gives a wide berth to the Biden administration to institute a lot of things, not the least of which very extensive covert work. Whether they'll do it or not is up to them or whatever. But it just seems like a weird can of worms to open up if you're Donald Trump right now, insofar as checking the influence of foreign adversaries on our elections and our country at this point. Because if you ever had any, if you could send SEAL Team 6, according to Sotomayor and according to this rule, you could send SEAL Team 6 to kill your political opponent. You sure as fuck can send, I guess FBI and CIA and DNI and other folks all over the fucking place to slowly and quietly get rid of, foreigners working under assumed names in the country without ever, bringing it, basically Gitmoing all of them.
Right.
It seems weird that they would hand this kind of power to Biden in this case, but they absolutely have.
They have. I mean, if Joe Biden decided he wanted to, round up every single very vocal, crazy MAGA person who has a huge platform. He wanted to. You were showing Tucker Carlson's interview with Putin earlier. You wanted to round up Tucker Carlson and call him an enemy of the state because he confers with Putin. He could totally do that. I don't see him doing that. Joe Biden's not a revenge guy, right? Mm-mm. He's not out to get anybody. He wants everybody
I will say this,
a good, healthy life.
I do not see him doing something as slapdash as rounding him up. I do see a situation where they have a lot more latitude to look into the finances and the organizational structures of, say, Donald Trump's LLCs, for security breaches.
Great. And how many people watching this would be okay if Joe Biden decided to install Hunter as co-chair of the DNC. Just
Right.
right, because Laura Trump is co-chair of the RNC right now. I don't know why that's okay with anybody. That should
Right.
not be allowed. I don't care how fucking criminal anybody is or how compromised you are. There really need to be rules where somebody who's related to the candidate can't be put in a position of helping elect them, like in an official government role or an official party role. Like, you want to be out here yelling with the rest of us and holding up signs and going on MSNBC or CNN and talk about your candidate. That's one thing. You can't be at the DNC or the RNC, playing the shell game and saying and doing stuff with dark money donations and making all of these plots. Like, we're going to stand there and watch election workers count the ballots. No, you're fucking not, Florence Foster Jerkins. No, you're not. We're not going to let that happen. Like, no.
Yeah.
So while this does set a dangerous precedent for the president, this president isn't going to abuse this power. He'll work within the realm of what feels normal and good for the country. Not for himself. He's not going to be like, well, I'm going to put myself in a protective bubble and then go out and fuck with people.
Yeah.
Our president's not going to do that. A Democratic president is
But
not
I will
gonna
say,
do that.
I agree. I don't think he's going to do like proactively awful things, the kind of that Trump would do. I do think that there are areas where up until this point, there were legally questionable areas where it would take another 3 steps to justify looking into the spycraft of another country directly related to a candidate for president like Donald Trump. That's gone now. Let's just be abundantly clear. It's not even that Biden would be violating the law. Biden, and I think he would have every justification to look into who, Trump is communicating with, overseas especially, right? I think he has every right to, and a reasonable belief after the years of what we've experienced with Trump to go, this looks hinky as fuck to me. So it would be I would be derelict in my duty as president if we didn't at least look into it. If we find something, it is our responsibility to forward it to the DOJ to directly handle it in the open. But in the background, we can search around, where there's smoke, there's fire, and it's our job to put out fires. So everywhere there's smoke, we'll be there. There's a huge, Jared and Ivanka is another example of that, their deal. Deutsche Bank, there's going to be all kinds of it would justify tremendous amounts of espionage towards Deutsche Bank and the Bank of Cyprus and the fucking Cayman Islands and all that shit where Trump and his ilk and his buddies have been hiding their money all this time.
Yeah, this decision's eventually going to come back to bite everybody who wanted it.
Yep.
That's what's going to happen. Eventually.
I agree.
And that's and again, it just gives us more reasons to vote blue, get our House majority back so that we have same thing. We need a fully Democratic controlled House and Senate and White House, because then we can get Roe back.
We can codify some normalcy back in there and write the law.
We can codify some normalcy. We can also expand the court. We can expand the court and have a more fair and balanced.
Stays a law instead of giving it so much latitude. So a good example. Whoops, I lost. There you are. You're back. Lost you for a second. Chevron, the law that everybody's talking about right now, which the dismantling of the administrative state, all that kind of stuff, and making experts of the Supreme Court when they are not, and all that. That is a definite concern. But the end result from that, if you have a Democratic Senate, House, and a president, is you could pass a bill that gives a controlled latitude to the groups you're talking about. So that in these cases, the EPA can have a latitude that will be revisited by the House and Senate that says, in deference to an ever-moving, aspect of, what companies do and the chemical nature of what they're working with and the lack of scientific expertise that people might have, we give said latitude within a certain parameter to report to us and say, we're going to up this or we're going to decide on this thing within it, but they have the right to do it within the expertise that they're there so that we don't have to micromanage all these agencies in a big country like this. And new bills will just simply be written with this latitude built in, because that's all the court, the court said they didn't have that latitude. Well, now they do. That's exactly it. right? That's they will put that into all bills going forward, or they won't be bills at all. That's going to happen. You could solve for that, right? And laws will have to be written for a time being and like they weren't written with Donald Trump in mind. They're like the rule about the vice president simply counting the electoral votes. That was it was an unwritten law in some ways. It was obviously stated, but it didn't have to be written into the minutia because nobody was going to challenge that. It's just not even heard of until somebody did. And they went, okay, we got to tighten the law. Happens all the fucking time, by the way. Laws are constantly tightened because some asshole finds a weasel way or a loophole around the law. And so they pass a new one and upgrade the law so that it provides for obvious dickheads and scam artists and frauds and other people who are good at weasel wording their way around the law. You fix that shit. Same thing will happen with Chevron, clearly. And so that everything that they've done just leaves it up to, and they're hoping the Congress stays red so that they will just stop any changes that would fix this.
Well, that's where we come in. We have to make sure that that's not the case. So. And the Republicans have such a razor-thin majority in the House right now, they're not going to be able to hold on to. Mm-hmm. They're just not, considering that Matt Gaetz is currently under a new investigation in the House Ethics Committee. He could be expelled. There's not been another call to expel Marjorie Taylor Greene. There are resolute, and I would love to believe with all my heart that when we get our majority back, that Democrats will begin the process of removing all of Trump's co-conspirators from January 6th. From the entire Congress, not just the House, but also the Senate, because there are plenty of every Republican in Congress has chosen loyalty to Donald Trump over the United States of America.
Yeah,
they have. They have made that obvious by standing with him, by inviting him back to the Capitol, where he fomented insurrection. They invited him back and welcomed him as a hero while blasting the actual heroes who held the House, held their ground, and made sure that we still had a country the next day when we woke up. So there's a lot of wrong that's going on there. And I would, that Bannon, did he cry? Was he crying when he processed?
No, he's proud.
This is my favorite.
He regrets that
This is my favorite of all of the finding out, because he's bloviating on, they can't silence me. Shut the fuck up and drink your Pruno now, bitch. Little fish, new fish. I want every bad Shawshank experience. I want him to have the full welcome to Shawshank experience.
Oh, good Lord. So he's not going to, because nobody would want
I know,
that.
But
there is again, this is not new meat. This is microwave tuna. This is there's nothing appealing about this. The guy who probably has to worry the least about something happening to him in prison. Honestly,
I feel bad for the person who had to do
there are lifers with the
search.
death penalty who don't want to catch what Bannon has.
But you're the guy who has to do Steve Bannon's cavity search. How do you find your appetite ever again after that?
Oh, they've had this is par for the course for these guys. I'm sorry.
Well, I know parts is parts, but I mean, in this case, this is my favorite of all of the finding outs, because he tried so hard to stay out of prison while acting all tough on his stupid podcast and bloviating in person with the 7 shirts on or whatever, and his whole face falling off. It reminds me of Goldmember. I always expect him to pull a scab off his face and eat it. So he's so gross. Yeah, and I love this for him. I hope he's so miserable. I hope he's terrified every second he's in there. I hope he's as mad as Peter Navarro.
I think he thinks because it is not going to be comfortable. I can't imagine it genuinely being comfortable. But I think he views himself, or at least he'll act like he does, views himself as like a mob guy who did his time with his mouth shut. Because that's how he thinks he's going to be rewarded on the other side by whoever the money people are.
It's not going to be like Goodfellas. There's not going to be anybody in there slicing garlic with a razor blade for him very thinly so he has a good meal. No one is going to be doing that for him.
Right. He's going to Danbury in Connecticut, and he'll be there for, through the election, effectively. So it
works for me.
Yeah. And
4 months is nothing, by the way, considering. And then he's not even done because he has trials to face when he gets out. So I'm not particularly worried about him having a whole lot of freedom.
I agreed. And I think ultimately he's gonna, he's gonna make a macho showing of it both before and after. There'll be messages from Steve on his podcast, and they'll try to make it like But it sucks no matter what they. And by the way, I hope Trump talks to him in jail, and Bannon tries to give Trump this "jail's not too bad" pep talk to Trump, because that's what Trump's going to want to hear.
That would be my favorite new buddy comedy, by the way. If they were in jail together, it'd be like Stir Crazy, but for real. And
my chunky cellmate. Yeah,
I love this. I love this for them. I mean, anybody who loves Donald Trump more than America is more than welcome to go to prison along with them. Have a great time together. You can sit around and talk about how you're all going to overthrow democracy when you get out. That'll be delightful. Go enjoy that. Go have that. JD Vance can go too.
Steve, I'm just going to say, your toilet wine is some of the worst. Let me just add the Fruit Loops. I don't want Fruit Loops in there. I prefer Frosted Flakes. I've told you this. The color makes me feel weird. Tell me where they can reach you on social media. So it's
and then you have JD Vance in the corner, and he's making his own eyeliner from matches and his own spit.
Right.
Hillbilly effigy. Every single one of Trump's quote unquote VP picks is worse than the next one. You have hillbilly effigy who can't tell the truth because back in 2016 he was talking about how shitty Donald Trump is. Now he sure loves him for some reason. And then he's not going to pick a black man. He's just not because he's racist. I know the photo, the optics would be good, but ultimately not. Anybody who's going to outshine him in any way, anybody who has a personality is off. He's not choosing a woman. We already know that. So I think it might be. It might be Doug Burgum just because no one knows who he is. No one knows anything about him. He doesn't have any real personality. He'll do what he's told. He won't outshine him. He won't steal the spotlight, and he has a hot wife. He's a rich man with a hot wife, which is Donald Trump's favorite combination. He's a regular dude, but he's got a hot wife, so the optics there are good.
So what? Trump thinks he'll get a poke at her?
No, I think it's more like, hey, look at the hot women who are around my guy. Look at who comes to Mar-a-Lago. Like that the white trashy. His opinion, his female ideal is so trashy. Right. So I saw somewhere that Trump really likes rich men who have hot wives because he thinks he's one of them. He thinks he's a rich man with a hot wife. And so he likes to be in that club. And so if he has someone similar, because Doug Burgum is a millionaire with a hot wife, but no one knows anything about him, that makes Trump, it just looks like the Billionaire Boys Club, right? And they're dude bros, and we're all hanging around, and we bang our wives, and other people want to bang our wives, and we're all macho. It's all a macho smokescreen. It is all a macho smokescreen to make it seem like they are living the life that every red-blooded American man wants, but they not. They not like us. Okay, they not like us. Is the saying. So they're not going to do anything for you guys. You know that, right? He doesn't love you. He doesn't care about you. Loves your grifted money, though.
Right.
Look, did you see Troy Niels? Troy Niels is wearing the fucking stupid gold sneakers. I swear, every single one of these Trump traders. I spent some time on the phone last week, by the way. If people don't know this, people in the chat, every American citizen has the right to call any sitting member of the U.S. government to voice their opinions. You can send them an email or you can call their offices and you can share those office phone numbers on Twitter. That's not doxing. Just want to put that out there because we're allowed to do this as American citizens while we still have the First Amendment. So I spent some time last week calling the worst of the worst. I called J.D. Vance's office. I called Paul Gosar's office. Well, Paul Gosar and Nicole Maliotakis both have me blocked. So I called them about that. But, I mean, I called all the bad people. And a lot of the time, someone actually answered the phone. And I was like, why do you work for a trader who's chosen loyalty to Donald Trump over the United States? And they're like, because they're not used to being asked questions like that.
Right.
But that's the question. That's honestly, from this point on, if the MSM is going to still have Trump surrogates on TV, Caitlin Collins, if you're still going to do that on CNN and whatnot, The question I want you to ask any Republican is, why have you chosen loyalty to Donald Trump over the United States of America? Because that's what they're doing.
Right.
He's an adjudicated rapist, convicted felon facing sentencing
And it's also
on 34
it's a
felony
Gordian
convictions.
knot of a question, because it's hard for them to. I'm not,
But it's true.
Right.
Yeah,
It's totally true.
You are, because you are, and you're doing it right in front of us. You're doing it right in front of us when you say, yeah, I'm voting for the convicted felon, and that you're making up shit about Joe Biden to make it sound like that Donald Trump is the better choice because being a convicted felon is better than a guy who keeps kissing a kid's head and you think he's sniffing children.
Right.
He's not sniffing children. By the way, anybody who is a parent, I don't know about anybody else. I know maybe all of the mothers who might be out there. When my sons were babies, I couldn't get enough of smelling their heads. Their heads smell amazing.
Oh yeah.
The baby smell, it's an intoxicant for a loving
And also,
parent.
I don't know how you don't like when you're holding your kid, if they're still shorter than you, how you don't kiss the top of their head. They're just there, and you love them, and it's overwhelming.
I love when my boys were growing up, I couldn't stop. I couldn't keep my hands off of them. I was kissing them all the time. I was hugging them all the time. I'm a Jewish mother. I demonstrate my love. Joe Biden demonstrates good touch. Donald Trump demonstrates bad touch. It'd be nice if you would all learn the difference. That photo of that beautiful black and white photo of Joe kissing Hunter Biden on the cheek, just loving his son.
Right.
Loving his son is what kills MAGA the most.
That freaks Glenn
Donald
Beck
Trump was
out. There are a few pictures that make Glenn Beck more upset and nervous than that picture, which is really fucking odd. It's obvious.
Don't know the love of a father and son, a true love between a father and son. They just don't. They don't know how to recognize
feeling it, or do you think they're just so anti-gay that it easily?
I don't think. Well, in this situation,
something?
it's not. Well, it's not a gay thing. It's a jealousy that they didn't have that relationship with their father. My father never hugged me. My father never kissed me. My father never did this. My father never supported me. My father never did. Tara's father. Tara's father never hugged and kissed her unless her mother instructed him to do so. Tara has a lot of issues with her dad that she worked out in therapy, so I'm fine now. But that's why Tara married a man just like her dad. Yay, psychology. But here's the thing. If you've got daddy issues, work through them now. There's a normal expression of parental affection, and there's abnormal expressions of parental affection. And if you don't know the difference, maybe take a step back from the internet and get into therapy and learn the difference. Joe Biden is love. Joe Biden loves his family. Joe Biden loves his country. Joe Biden loves democracy. Joe Biden wants this country to thrive, whether he's telling you in a perfectly clear voice or in a slightly froggy, slightly stuttered voice. He's still telling you the truth, and he still is going to point out every lie that Donald Trump, because he did. He called Donald Trump a liar on stage that night at the debate. He let Donald Trump know that you're a person who molested a woman in a public place. You're a person who did this. You're a felon. You did this, and you did this. And Donald Trump went, got him dead to rights. We've got him dead to rights.
He nodded.
So,
I pointed that out at one point specifically, but I was like, he nodded when Biden was criticizing him so many times, like he couldn't not admit it. It was
and his microphone was off, so there was not a lot that he could do.
But he was
even when the moderators, you have been convicted of 34 felonies and you're facing sentencing, and he's like,
so one of the videos that came out after the debate that's been making the rounds, besides the cool handshake that was seen by more people at this point than the debate itself. I don't know if you saw that when he went to the Waffle House. And
the Waffle House. I love that they went to Waffle House and then they flew to Raleigh and they were up until after 2 a.m. visiting with supporters, and then he got up and made a great speech in Raleigh, and then he flew to New York and did a Stonewall appearance for Pride with Elton John in one day. I would be fucking dead. I would be fucking dead if that was my schedule. I don't know about you, but the handshake.
Yeah, so he
is man of the people, Joe Biden.
Yeah, he dapped with this dude at the... Yeah, here it is. I'll see if I can bring it up in here.
He dapped. I didn't know that the kids were still dapping. That's nice.
Not dab, which is different. Watch right here.
Oh, dap and dab are different. Okay,
She does look good.
Yeah.
Extremely good.
They come in and he goes, "Hey man," like that to this dude. Watch this.
How you doing, sir?
No, you spend too much time in the gym.
So,
Love my president.
like that, yeah. So that moment right there, that video has been seen by more people than watched the debate.
Fine with that. I am fine with that because what it comes down to is that is who Joe Biden is.
Yeah.
Joe Biden is literally a man of the people. He loves talking to average Americans.
Yes, he
he
does.
loves hearing their stories. He would have stayed in that Waffle House till dawn if his schedule allowed it. He would have.
Yeah.
Aside from obviously loving the scattered, smothered, and covered, he likes to talk to the people. He likes to go where they are and hang out with them.
That's right.
And
So
have
that
a
was,
meal or some ice cream.
Right. That specifically, like that moment was part of what is driving sort of the right wing crazy about this, and why while we're seeing these editorials in WAPO and New York Times and all this stuff, this is the stuff that's actually carrying with the public. And like I said, the clips of the debate for Biden work better than the overall debate itself by far. And people who watch the debate with either a translator or the closed captions on saw the substantive nature of Biden's answer versus Trump's rambly, self-aggrandizing bullshit, and made a decision that Biden's the better dude. The press freaked out at his sort of like brain farts, but again, I would argue that he was literally being gassed by real farts at that point. I would not doubt.
I mean, he was.
What would you do?
Know this.
What would you do in this situation? Because we know I already cataloged when Trump sharted during an answer. When his mic is off, what do you think? He was holding him in? So Biden's trying to talk, and there's a bunch of times where he's like looking shocked and kind of like it's extraordinary. People are like, oh, he looks so like he looks like an old man who's just kind of like, where am I? But the whole point is like, how would you look at somebody like, oh my God, I'm on a debate stage for a presidential election. This motherfucker is letting him rip. And it's,
I mean, if you're standing downwind of the crop dusting and like you get the taste in your mouth, like, when you're walking down like there are times, because I live in Portland, I'm walking down the street and I end up walking through somebody's BO waft.
Yes.
Like just their BO is like a physical presence.
Yeah.
And it's like a solid, heavy thing that I've passed through. Like
grocery
almost,
aisles. It's terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would imagine, so if I were on a stage and I heard Donald Trump wetly shart that way, I'd be like, did you just shart, man?
Yeah.
Did you just shart on live TV?
His facial expressions make so much more sense with that in context. And again,
so
yeah, go ahead.
Smelled that, I'd be like, who or where is there like a slaughterhouse downwind?
Like you just
where are we right now?
Look at Biden's face every time he's looking over at Trump, where he's like, I honestly like.
How did I end up in this room with you?
Is it going to start pouring out of his pants leg
with you? It should have been Chris Christie. It should have been Chris Christie. Chris Christie dropped out of this race too soon. I'll keep saying it. They're not. I mean, and the fact that I think he doesn't have a whole lot of confidence in his own campaign when he hasn't announced a real VP, and that he's going to be sentenced, and then they're supposed to have a convention. None of this makes sense. This is fully abnormal. More people should be screaming. And the video, the tweets that I've been putting out is, how come no one is demanding that Trump drop out except for the Philly Inquirer? Like, we need to have more mainstream people in the media being like, Trump should have dropped. Well, first of all, Trump should have dropped out when he made fun of the disabled reporter in 2016. That's when it should have ended, and it didn't. And the fact that it didn't end there and that we ended up here, we should be enjoying Hillary Clinton's nice, quiet second term now. Anyway,
I agree.
Anyway, I know we're over and we have to go.
We are. So thanks so much. Check out.
Remember who lied and who truthed.
That's right. Sound of Settling is the book. TaraDublinRocks.com will take you to the Amazon site to buy it. Yes?
Yes, please. I have sold now, I think as of this morning, at 708 copies, and over 40,000 pages have been read, or almost 40,000 pages have been read, just on Kindle. And it would be super awesome if you would all just buy my book at Tara Dublin Rocks and then share it. Please share it on your socials. Please let everybody know. And also in the battle of Taylor Swift versus Dave Grohl, like I'm at an impasse there. Don't ask me to choose. Don't ask me to choose. But, well, I'm a Swiftie over 50 and also, a 30-year Foo Fighters fan. So But the thing is, I feel like at this point, I could get into a Taylor Swift show easier than a Foo Fighters show at this point because I still don't have a ticket for next month's show here in Portland. So we need to rectify that.
Yeah, we do.
And if anybody out there wants to help me out with that, that'd be great because I still am not in touch with them, and that would be awesome. Anyway, get the book. It's really good. Cameron Crowe says you should read it.
There you go. Thank you so much, Tara. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys. Have a great week. Love you.
Bye. There she goes. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been such a wacky 90 hours since the debate. And I'm just going to say, before I even leave, since I can bring the chat in here, I would like to, I don't know how to say this other than right again. I was right again. I've been right again. That even, after watching the debate and then doing my live stream and going, as we went along going, I don't think this is going to be a problem ultimately, and Donald Trump will fuck up a free lunch if given half a chance. And I was right again. Right again. And you know what? I'm going to continue to be right about this. And I do not get tired of it. I'm just saying. It's a good time. You know why I love it the most? Is it an ego thing? Maybe. But the biggest, I think, is that I like that I'm not wasting your time. Think of all the people who were, wailing and gnashing of teeth, or continue to do, on some of the other interweb sites. And think about what those people are telling you about how it was going to go and what was going to happen and how the fundraising was going to tank and the voters are going to turn to Trump now and blah, 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 or RFK and all that. And nope. Just like I told you. And I would just like you to factor that in your liking and subscribing of the show when I put it out there. It should, the content that I'm providing, I will weigh my content against anyone's any day, specifically for that reason. So, yeah. Hit the like, the subscribe. If you feel like becoming a Patreon, patreon.com/HalSparks. There's the Venmo. If you use Venmo, you can send me a cup of coffee every so often, just when you're random views. You remember something I said that made you laugh in the middle of the day, you're like, oh, here's $1. Thanks for that laugh that wasn't even related to the show, but except tangentially. And then, of course, all our patrons get another free comedy show every month that I do from Flappers, and I'm working on making that available for members on YouTube. I think we figured out how to do that, but it's a re-airing. It can't go live at the same time. I don't know why, but whatever. But we will figure it out. Love you guys. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else, and I will see you this afternoon for the regular show. Now, tomorrow, I don't have a morning show normally on Tuesdays anyways, but the afternoon show should, for all practical purposes, be on at the right time. I will just be in Kentucky. So we are flying in the morning. We will arrive in time for the afternoon show. Fingers crossed, it should be all right. So schedule this week should be fairly normal until Friday, which I've got to work out because I now have to fly Friday morning to get to the Nerd Halen Jackpot gig. And so there may be some shuffling Friday, Saturday, just Friday. And then Boston I've got to work on because I'm going to be radio in Boston's going to be hell. I think we might have to make Boston Brian fill in for me on the show. And instead of going to the hotel, go straight to his house and just join him. That might be the only solution that will work. Or I could pre-tape it, but I'd rather do it live. So 4th of July, I'll have regular shows in theory. I may only do one show. It's just Thursday, right? So, But yeah, Friday itself, normally I would have a show, but I've got to fly. We'll figure it out. But either way, today and tomorrow and Wednesday should move on without a hump. So there you go. And much love to you guys. And I would like to just, when you see the news stories today, I want you to take 3 breaths, before you react to them, and enjoy using every possible faculty that you have instead of the panic ones only, because that's what a ton of folks do. They breathe in their upper chest, and then the only thing they can write is ah. Don't do that. There's so much more to you than your panic. I'm here to tell you. It's a key aspect of this, and I think it was Harriet Hagman who said, "Wow." Wyoming loves Pete Buttigieg, I guess. Shit. Hit the like, everybody. And if you're on Twitch, subscribe, will ya? For God's sake. Roll, credits, roll. I'm trying to get him to roll. It's this crazy credity thing. Go. Do it. Do it. There they are. Excellent. Thank you guys for the support today. Thanks, Daffy, and thank you, JD Christie, and thank you, Peach T, Tina, and thank you, 56 Nick Rich, and Candy, and Arizona Sunflowers, and Bald Thanos. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for the likes as well. Great Britain, thank you so much. And North Korea, what? Thank you so much. And Still Alive, thank you. And Jerry, thank you. And Roderick, thank you so much. And thanks to Cliff and Kathleen, thank you for pledging on Patreon and becoming a year-long member. Thank you so much. Love that. Patreon.com/HouseParks, everybody. Just do it.